they've been playing real solid as well.
Yeah, they've been playing really solidly, especially during week 3, where they won 3 out of their 4 matches that they played that weekend. As we're going to get the picks underway, will be Brazil that will be locked in first from the TempoBros. It was Feed in charge of locking that pick in. Henkan will be the first to make a pick for PIWO, followed by then Hergam, I'm assuming. Then Azion, the fourth and final pick, before the decider will be the map that is left in the map pool, and we're kind of pondering the picks a little bit. It seems like we're hesitating. It will be China, locked in by Henkan, immediately followed by France. From Hergam, leaving Azion the choice between USA and Greece. It will be USA. So, Brazil, China, France, USA, and Greece. Your map order for today's game.
I am very excited to be starting off this game on Brazil. It's become, you know, I've said one of my favorites, but it's become my favorite map in the map pool. Like, it's just so fun to watch. The identity, everything, the races till the end, the fails, the zoops. It's just fantastic. I love it. But you know what I'd also love to do is, you know, maybe it's time to get some predictions in as we wait for the match to start.
Predictions. I'm kind of taking a look at the way everybody stacked up. Feed picked the first map for a reason, of course, being Brazil. He has a 38.7% win rate out of 31 rounds that were reported that he played on ECM. He has 12 round wins under the bag, and it looks as though it will be looking up for team TempoBros, although China, maybe we can see some retaliation. Hergam has been especially good on China. Out of 35 rounds played on ECM, 12 of those have been won by Hergam, so it's a pretty good track record there in France. Maybe looking to try and make a stand for themselves. Yeah, Hergam looking to try and maybe play a bit of a spoiler role, which complicates things a little bit. Don't think we're going to be seeing a 3-0. I'm thinking a 3-1. Maybe the TempoBros have the advantage. Oh man, this is so tough to call, Tobel. It's really tough.
It really depends for me as well, because PIWO, if they want, they can perform really, really well, and we've seen it in previous weeks, but they also have the ability to very much drop the ball, while whereas TempoBros, I feel like, is generally a much more consistent teams, and they can stack up against those top 4 teams in Division 2 as well. So it really does just come down to how well prepared is PIWO here against TempoBros, in my opinion. I do see this going the way of TempoBros, but if PIWO can, you know, let's just call it, if PIWO can lock in, I think a 3-2 is definitely in the cards.
Oh, even a 3-2. I'm thinking more of a 3-1, and I would have to agree with the TempoBros being a little bit more consistent. There's not so much variance in terms of the round outcomes on the blue side compared to the red side. But I'm honestly expecting a few sparks to fly there. Maybe not on the first map unless there's something either catastrophic going on the TempoBros side, or if PIWO have really found a second wind on that opening map that is Brazil, and that is going to get underway in 5 seconds time, even less than that, because the lights flash from red to green, and we are racing. Ladies and gentlemen, Azion and Feed versus Hergam and Henkan for the first of 3 games that the TempoBros have to play in their end-of-season stretch, and still in with a shot of potentially making it to P3 in the Division 2 standings.
Yeah, PIWO here with slightly slower PBs. Both the TempoBros players around about 0.2, 0.3 ahead with just their total PBs, and we do see this immediately come to fruition as they are 0.3 ahead of the closest PIWO player, Hergam, the Frenchman, just not quite able to get the same kind of speed out of the start, but his teammate Henkan getting even worse of it. So that means TempoBros on their first map pick here in an early ace formation to try and immediately lock in big points early. Hergam is going to be clipping there on the plastic half pipe transition. That means TempoBros is just going to be cruising into the finish if they don't make a mistake here.
Yeah, right now, well, TempoBros basically looking to try to take the most advantage of their map pick, trying to make do with it for the fullest of its potential, as we see Feed reach the finish line with a 0.512 to kick things off in a very sort of relaxed manner, especially considering Hergam's clip of the stone block at the top of that quarter pipe before. Checkpoint number 13, round number 2 underway. The TempoBros leading 3-0 at the end of the opening round, following along with Azion, who gets a good start, and it looks like his teammates. Oh, I thought his teammate actually clipped the start gate or something like that, and thus got relegated down to 4th. But no, and actually he has a supreme amount of speed out of the loop and over the water bounces Feed to move into the lead ahead of his own teammate Henkan, trying to keep pace with the duo of the Frenchmen up ahead, but it's looking very difficult to do so, especially as he comes almost to a stop in the beach before the first reactors.
Yeah, I've kind of said this, like, TempoBros is more consistent, and Brazil is definitely one of those maps where consistency is key. We see this immediately. This is like a carbon copy almost of round one, where both of the TempoBros players are just way too far up ahead for any of the PIWO guys to try and catch up. We see this once again, 0.5 ahead for both of the TempoBros player heading into the final identity, and it seems like they're just gonna be cruising to their next ace here, back-to-back. So that is 6 points going the way of TempoBros here, with PIWO being left with nothing at the moment. And, well, I mean, you kind of said you didn't really expect this first map to go the way of PIWO, like, anyways, and I think you were spot on with that.
Yeah, that sentiment of people not really having a word in age-wise, and that opening map pick of TempoBros seems to be going more and more validated. They're more banking on the fact of going on to France and going on to China as well. They're definitely kind of taking this one. They're like, okay, this is not really our strong suit. We can afford a 4-round deal to be taken there by the TempoBros, and we'll have our revenge on China. And if they're able to make revenge, they could definitely thwart the plans of TempoBros in the overall Division 2 standings, as we see Henkan again trying to keep pace with the TempoBros. But yeah, there's just too much space right now on hand for Feed and ASEAN for Henkan to really deal with here. You can see the gaps quite significant. Already a half a second to almost 0.6 of a second down compared to the leader, and ASEAN and Feed are actually tandeming this together. 0.5 midway through, although we did see a huge slowdown on the beach before checkpoint 14 on the part of Feed, which is going to be relinquishing the lead to ASEAN. He looked to be going on the low 104 time. That will not be the case more than likely as ASEAN crosses the finish line. It will be a 0.2 still, 0.265 in Feed. Did see Hyagam's ghost on the bottom of his screen from his perspective, but nothing to worry about for the TempoBros. Back-to-back aces, 9-0 at the end of the third round. The 4-round deal is about to be closed with the first map point attempt.
Yeah, it very much seems like TempoBros just wants to get this this first map over with as soon as possible. You've said it, they have a little bit of a stake here in trying to get a good spot still in the Division 2 standings, or rather a podium spot if they can ace. And well, this map seems to be a perfect start to that plan. ASEAN, unfortunately, with a little bit of a clip, but he's not going to be punished for that, as Henkan is going to make a mistake of his own, and that means TempoBros, I think, I don't want to call it too early. Mistakes can still happen throughout this map, but PIWO is sitting on 0 points. They have to get 3 counter aces to get a stake back into this round, and I don't really see that happening right now, so I think this is already going to be a done deal for TempoBros, right?
Yeah, unless anything goes extremely awry for the TempoBros, it's definitely going to be a 4-round deal done and dusted, although we get a significant clip on the part of Feed. That's a new one. I don't think I've ever seen that on Brazil before. And it will be his teammate ASEAN picking up the slack and thus guaranteeing the point for second place. They can't afford to have a single round defeat. It will still be the victory overall the map with a 10-2 score. Although I say that, we did play a little bit of car rock on the side of Henkan just before the finish, getting promoting Feed back up to third. It will be an 11-1 scoreline at the end of that map after a lot more attrition than what we've seen at all during this opening few rounds there for the TempoBros especially. It looked as though things kind of cooled off a little bit too much, and it was borderline Fiesta territory? Not quite, but we were close. As we go on to China, this is PIWO's chance to really throw a monkey wrench into the TempoBros plans for P3.
Yeah, PIWO has been looking fairly solid on this map, and I think back to some other rounds, they've generally done pretty well with consistency. Of course, this doesn't have as hard of an identity. However, you know, looking just at that last round, it wasn't really the identity that got PIWO, it was the overall pace that TempoBros was showing, and I think it might have to do with TempoBros just being more prepared, at least on Brazil, seeing as they really want to grab some big points, and they've got a big chance to do that because all of the remaining matches for them are going to be people placed or teams placed lower in the standings than them. So, you know, it is very much their time to pick up those points. But PIWO, they'd of course also like to pick up some of those points, not really for the standings, but maybe more for the ego.
Yeah, more for the ego, although I do see, well, China is definitely their first pick, looking to have their best job in terms of round wins. 12 round wins of the 35 rounds for Hyeogam, 20% win rate for Henkan. But looking at their medians, they have quite a deficit to work with. Both Henkan and Hyeogam are around half a second off compared to either of the TempoBros players. The best median will be going the way of Feed with a .131, and Feed actually ran at 105.508, best time in rounds. So this is going to be very interesting to see how P will cope with the pace that is potentially on display from the TempoBros as the first run of the second map is underway. Nobody's going to be going for the bug slide. Nobody even daring to go for the setup for the bug slide. Everybody will exit pretty regrouped within a tenth and a half of each other. Before checkpoint number 3, we go too wide before the drop down to checkpoint 3 for Feed, and thus P will have the upper hand.
Yeah, and a great chance for PIWO to pick up some early points, something that they were not able to do at all on Brazil. And with that slide out from Azion, it seems like PIWO is going to be doing, you know, kind of what TempoBros did to them in the first round of Brazil and getting an ace of their own. Now, I do want to take the small chance to kind of compare the paces out of the start, which is most likely what is a big deciding factor on China. And it seems like PIWO can hold their own there against TempoBros.
Yeah, people can hold their own against the TempoBros that is definitely looking to try and correct the shot for round number 2, given the unfortunate setbacks that they faced. We tend to go a little bit deep on the snowbank there for Hergam on the first nice turnaround, but given the gap that the two of them have built up, it will be pretty much inconsequential, that little trip into the snow for Hergam. We'll be clocking in at 106.326, a second ahead of his teammate. Azion in Feed, third and fourth, and yeah, Feed with that early touch of that exit of that long left-hander before the drop down. That has cost him dearly, and then Azion with the slide out of all things. Ow.
Yeah, I mean, those are mistakes that we've seen before, and it's kind of where the mistakes lie outside of that first turn on China, which we're going to be going into right now. Once again, of course, we don't really see a bug slide in Division 2 unless it's like the top teams. But yeah, in this round number 2, the Azion getting scarily close there to making the same mistake his teammate did last round. But they are going to be finding themselves with a player in the lead heading into the ice slide with Feed just able to catch up to him.
And unfortunately for PIWO, it seems as though the tide will be turning, as we did get a huge slide out for Hergam, but maybe a lifeline has been thrown with the respawn from Feed. Feed is respawning all the way at this end of the ice slide, so he will be dropping down to fourth, so P will have the chance to maybe keep the 3-point lead intact. What you didn't potentially catch on camera was the fact that Hergam slid out early, almost in the same place as Azion in the start of checkpoint 4, so the ice long right-hand ice slide, which is what's prompted him to be sent down to P4, but watch out for Feed. He's actually coming back thick and fast, looking to try and put Hergam under pressure for the benefit of third place. It will be Azion winning the round ahead of Hankan. Feed versus Hergam. Who gets the best amount of speed? It will be Hergam, thus locking in the draw, and thus allowing PIWO to keep that 3-point lead intact. And by the way, Azion did win with another 106 at .101 this time.
Oh, very, very nice. So the consistency, I guess, is showing through a little bit, but we've played 2 rounds and PIWO has finally, you know, still found themselves in that lead that they were able to build in that first round, something that we were not able to do at all, like points at all on Brazil. So, you know, this being one of their better maps definitely showing here right now. We're going to be heading into this round number 3 with PIWO in the lead, and Hergam is going to be trying to find himself up in the lead as Hankan has fallen quite significantly behind and has to release here. Hergam going way too wide is not going to be able to get the benefit of the exit as the speed, and back to worse, and all of a sudden TempoBros on track to tie up the score.
Yeah, an unfortunate clip there for Hergam on the way up towards the convex platform before checkpoint number 6, and that clip from the right front of the car just completely sent him awry. He's lucky to get away with it without a respawn, but that was just enough for the TempoBros of an indentation to actually get through, as we seem to have seen maybe someone go a little bit deep in the snow, it seems like, with Azion in the first nice turnaround, but that will be inconsequential given the gap that has been built up. It will be another 106.150. That's kind of to be expected. Both teams, well, one team looking a little bit rusty from time to time, the other team not really looking to be on the preferential map in terms of the order that it's currently being played in, but the TempoBros get this round into the, it's not pretty, but it gets the job done, Callum, and it will be 4-4 going into round 4.
Yeah, Feed went super deep into the snow there. The entire back half of his car was on the snow. I thought he was going to be sliding out, but he just barely managed to stay in as his front wheels were just barely still on the booster. So it was enough, but it was very, very scary to watch. This round, PIWO, they're not going to be quite happy about losing that lead on their first map pick, so they're going to be looking to redeem themselves as they are finding themselves in an ace formation here. Hankan is going to be dropping some speed. Both of the TempoBros player able to overtake into second and third position, so it's now Hergam on the defense all of a sudden has to try and keep the score line tied up.
Yeah, and Khan went a bit high on the convex platform, thus prompting him to drop down in P4. He will be about a 10th back from Feed, who goes a bit wide on the way to checkpoint 9, tries to go for the flagpole strat on checkpoint 9 through 10, manages to get away with it. Henkan still very much in pursuit of the TempoBros, looking to try and find an aperture to make a strike happen and thus allow PIWO to retake the lead, but that lead will not be retaken just yet. Hergam will be locking in the individual round victory, going into the 106.0s with a .085. Henkan at the bottom means a draw will be pronounced. It's 5-5 as we go into round number 5, and I think Hergam just did his best in-match record time, as going into today, he was on a .060 on the 106s, and he drove a .01.
I mean, that's kind of what you want to see when you're playing against a team like TempoBros. Unfortunate mistake there for Hergam. Maybe he's still a little shaky after that time, but you can't really do much about it. But Henkan is gonna fight right back with a mistake of his own. Unfortunately, finding both TempoBros players once again up in the lead, and they're gonna be able to now all of a sudden get a lead here on PIWO's first map pick.
Right now, Feed kind of scampering into the distance. He's trying to pull a Sean Langdon from Top Fuel NHRA Drag Racing, just trying to pull away into the distance without anybody else behind him, as he continues to try and pull a pretty big gap on his own teammate. 0.3 of a second of an advantage for Feed compared to Azion as we go into the ice turnaround. We don't go deep enough to go into the snow. We barely missed the snow patch on the part of Azion. It will be an easy 1-2 lock-in for the TempoBros. And what will the stopwatch say this time? Are we going to see a 105 for the first round of the match? The answer is a yes, a .673. Wow. From Feed. Azion 3/10 down, 8-5 for the TempoBros, who are on map point attempt number 2. And just to close the NHRA Drag Racing comparison, I say Sean Langdon because that man drove the fastest pass in NHRA history at 345 miles per hour. For those of us in metric land, 555 kilometers per hour over 300 meters.
Yeah, I want to say that was almost his PB just now. He was less than 0.1 off of his PB right there, and it is faster than both of the PIWO players' PBs. So, you know, I think even if PIWO did not make those early mistakes, both of Henkan and Hergam did not make those early mistakes, I don't think they would have been able to compete with that anyways. So, very well-deserved points there for TempoBros. Find themselves on track point on to get a second point and immediately shut down many of the chances that PIWO is having on what I would consider one of their best map picks here. And once again, TempoBros are finding themselves up in the lead. This time, PIWO is still within striking distance, but the identity is not going to... Oh, never mind. Mistake from Azion.
Yeah, a slight clip from Azion before the drop down will at least allow PIWO to extract one more point and keep the dream alive of putting TempoBros one map down to even kind of like the scoreboard. It will be Feed winning the individual round, and thus will be clocking in a .6, again, .698. 0.3 ahead of Henkan. Hergam in third and Azion down in fourth due to that mistake. And now for PIWO, I have to say the line again. It's ace or bust. There's no other choice, is there?
Yeah, I mean, they've been finding themselves in this ace or bust situation so much. Last round, I mean, that would have had to be 3 aces in a row, which is very unrealistic. Now it's at least only 1 ace, but you know, if you have to say the lines, oh, at least we only have to ace once, then you're already pretty deep in the mud. And that's kind of where PIWO is right now. They have nothing to lose on the other hand, so they're going to be pushing as much as they can, and Henkan is going to go very tight. Unfortunately, his teammate Hergan is not going to be able to do quite the same line as him, and is going to be finding himself on the slide out and on the outskirts, has to respawn, and is completely out of the race. So I think this one's also a done deal.
Yeah, that was a very violent slide out as well. Like, the car kind of, as I like to kind of like refer to it in like IRL words, sort of like stalling out. Like, the car kind of stalls out for a grip and just kind of goes in the direction it was supposed to, it continues to be going without any player input whatsoever. And yeah, that's unfortunate. That unfortunate mishap from Hergam is going to be sealing the deal in favor of the TempoBros, who are going to be taking this map 11-7, and Azion will be taking us back into the 106 territory on a .041, half a second ahead of Henkan. Feed in third. Hergam will be finishing with 4 seconds to spare right there. This map, and PIWO facing an early setback in their own plans to try and actually make TempoBros work for it, as we're going to be moving on to our second map pick from the TempoBros. We're going to be going on to France next, their other best shot. And if I can pull the stats from France there, Koshi did play a couple of rounds on there. Koshi, for those of you who don't know, is one of the substitute player for PIWO. He did play on that one, but what's of interest is Hergam, out of 38 rounds that he played on this map, He has won 12 of them. Currently, his median... Oh, medians are not looking all that good. Well, I
Mhm.
say, oh, not all that good, but he's still better than Feed. Feed doesn't have the best of medians either. Feed has a 108.783 on a median, and it is a 108.631 for Hergam. So maybe there is something to be taken away there. And Henkan as well on the 0.525, both better than Feed. It's only Azion that can be a bit of a thorn on their side with a 108.082 median time for the teammate from Feed. And
Yes.
a 47.6% win rate, it must be said.
Oh. Yeah, so I do think this is more than China somehow a great chance for PIWO to finally get a point on the board here, as I've just taken a quick look at their individual PBs, and while on the other maps so far, it's always been both of the TempoBros players were significantly faster with their PBs than PIWO. This map is very much looking different, with Hankan with a PB of 107.298, at least online PB. Bergam with a 107.436, I think the slowest PB, but Feed only with a 107.332, and ASEAN with a 107.263. So we're actually looking at fairly comparable PBs here, but then again, PBs aren't really the end-all be-all.
Well, the end-all be-all could be for Azion, because the .263 that is his personal best, he did that in an Overdrive match. The rest, they are looking a bit slower than that. It's a .424 best time in match for Feed, a .7 flat for Hergam, as we did see the Frenchman actually clip at the top of the grass hill. He will be clipping another time before checkpoint number 1 rings the bell. But yeah, for Hergam, a .7 flat best in match, and for Hankan, even though he has a .298 on record in the public leaderboards, his best time in match, a 108.018. So yeah, definitely a bit of a pace deficit in rounds to actually work with, as we see the TempoBros take advantage of a bit of a demise from Hergam and just a slight pace deficit from Hankan at the start of this round. Even though we don't go too aggressive for Feed, we can afford to take a bit of margin there.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every round is just mirroring itself here. I feel like 90% of the rounds have been both of the TempoBros in the lead, with Hankan or Hergam 0.3 behind, and one of the other PIWO players just off in the distance. It's been a pattern, and TempoBros have just been more consistent. Let's see if the Identity can see Hankan overtake a player, and it seems like that's possible. Feed with a mistake, and Hankan finding himself in second place. ASEAN's gonna clip, but it's not gonna matter. And, well, at least it's a point for PIWO on the board, not letting TempoBros run away with it once again too early, and still keeping a wheel in the door to, you know, maybe get this map win still.
Yeah, Hankan's point was given to him by Feed, who basically just clipped very heavily with the left front going into the very first transfer of the first half-pipe, which slowed him down dramatically, and that speed loss compounded through the rest of the half-pipe section, prompting the Swede to move up into second place and thus at least allow PIWO to keep visual contact, but this time it will not be able to repeat the same feat, as he clipped not once but twice the top of the arch checkpoint, and in fact slowed down so much that he will be forced to respawn and actually take the safe route around, cannot even go for the risky jump. Hergam down in third has to try and do the same thing that his teammate did a little bit earlier on, but he sees the gap is quite significant to work with. But as we said, the Identity can really spring a few surprises, and that whole third sector going from checkpoint 7 all the way through to the finish line can really see rounds being flipped around on their heads.
Yeah, but we're still seeing, once again, I've been saying this, 90% of the rounds, both TempoBros players up in the lead, one PIWO player 0.3 behind, and the other off in the distance. We're seeing the same thing, so maybe the PIWO players can hope for the same thing as last round with mistake from TempoBros, but it seems like they're going to be clean this time through the quarter pipe jumps, and now finally getting themselves that ace that they've been looking for last round with 107.9. It's not the fastest time ever, but it is more than enough to get the 3 points here. Hankan is gonna be able to make it into the finish, 4 seconds to spare, and that is gonna see TempoBros now at 5 points, looking to close this one out, actually 3-0, which if they are gonna be able to do that, I think they're actually gonna have a chance to potentially even overtake Heretics in the Division 2 standings, right?
Yep, 5 points down, 5 to go for the TempoBros if they want to still be on course to take the fight to Heretics for a spot on the podium in the Division 2 standings. Right now, going into the third round, it will be Hergam a little bit slow, will be taking advantage of a slowdown from his teammate Hankan to move up into provisional third place, but the two PIWO players kind of battling against each other and their own struggles, allowing the blue side to just pull away into the distance and never to be seen again, as we actually see Azion leading his teammate by half a tenth, and he is also 3/10 ahead of Heagam, who clubbers the wall on the way to checkpoint number 7. Not so much clubbers as gives a little bit of a kiss of the wall before checkpoint 7. And Henkan now actually trying to sound the charge and try to bring a point home for PIWO on this round.
Yeah, and it seems like at least a point is very much in the cards. Never mind. And he's going to be clipping. And it seems like TempoBros is going to be finding themselves once again in an ace formation, taking home 3 additional points, putting themselves on to match point right about now. And yeah, 8 points to 1 on their second map pick. PIWO is not where they want to be right now. I've said this kind of at the start. PIWO is always a bit of a toss-up. Either they play very, very well, and we've seen this in Overdrive as well, where they, I don't know, I don't remember what week it was. Was it week 2 where they won 3 of their 4 matches?
It was week 3.
Week 3, my bad. But yeah, right now, not really quite finding their groove. Some mistakes. There's another one.
And Henkan jumping off. Oh, Heagam jumping off. I thought it was Henkan.
And so TempoBros have just kind of been better.
TempoBros have been better, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna loosely translate the French expression that we use from time to time, saying that there are days with and days without. This was a day without. Very much for PIWO in terms of being able to take a fight against the TempoBros. We go very low, though, over the barrier before checkpoint number 8 for Azion, almost brushing the wall. Henkan might just be given an opportunity there to try and extract at least one more round if he can make it stick all the way into the identity. They're going to both be side by side, separated by 4 milliseconds, and Henkan goes super low on the first transfer. Azion will be clipping, cracking under pressure, and even respawning. That means Heagam gets promoted up to 3rd, and what would have been a draw gets converted into a victory. Henkan clocking in a 107.648, which, if my math is correct, should be his best round time in match, and actually even faster than what Heagam could muster at the 7 flats.
Yeah, and he's keeping the hope alive for his team to at least score a single point here. However, we are in the situation where we've been last round. It's PIWO ace or bust, and not just one ace. They've got to get the 2 pocket aces, the best poker hand you can get. Unfortunately, I see it just as unlikely as actually getting that hand in poker, right?
Yeah, this is looking very grim from the outset. A 6-point deficit is incredibly difficult to catch back up, especially when you're working with a bit of a pace deficiency compared to the opposing team. When I say that, I don't mean that in the most pejorative way. I'm more trying to put the things the way they are, and the way things are is that the TempoBros are simply outclassing PIWO, especially in terms of the consistency, as we saw case in point. Henkan get a little bit of a wall brush on the way towards checkpoint 7. It will be Heagam trying to sound the charge for PIWO, but he's a bit too far down compared to even Azion. He has a 2/10 gap to try and climb back up. We go to the identity. We've seen plenty of dreams being broken there, and plenty of dreams made true for those behind, those that are heartbroken. But right now, the first transfers look good. 3rd transfer looks fine for the TempoBros, and it will be GG no read. Despite a clip from Azion, it will be Fee taking the round win with a .668. 2/10 clear of his teammate Heagam, and Henkan gave it all it could, but it wasn't meant to be. 12-3 for the TempoBros, who win 3-0 against PIWO. Heagam and Henkan will thus be confirmed, I think, in 6th position in the Division 2 standings. They're still very much well ahead of their target, which was to get out of the promo relegation zone. But now the TempoBros, they're going to be looking very spiffy.
Yeah, I mean, TempoBros leaving no wiggle room for PIWO, and I think this was their hardest of their remaining games. Now they only have their game against Loading and Evolu coming up, which both respectively are most likely gonna be easier games than against PIWO. But once again, PIWO is always a toss-up, so maybe I can get surprised by Loading or Evolu up there to try and fight out for at least some of those map points. But yeah, we are gonna just see when those games come up how TempoBros are gonna be handling that. Right now, I do believe there's gonna be no changes in the overall positions between the teams, but TempoBros has gotten one step closer to getting onto the podium here.
Yes, indeed. The TempoBros have indeed done the work to try and get closer onto the podium. They are now on a +7 map difference, 17 maps won, 10 maps lost, that they're able to keep going back to back. They could move on to +13, which would potentially move them ahead of Team Heretics for P3, as there would be a tie in terms of match wins, and they're able to win their last 2 games on the same aces, but then the next tiebreaker will be the differential between map losses and map wins. Right now, it's +12 for Heretics, who have, of course, completed all their games in the season. The TempoBros have a shot of potentially overtaking them on a tiebreaker. So that will be the story to follow along in the next few days whenever we get to playing the last couple of games in Division 2. And I think I do have a bit of... I guess I can spoil it a little bit. Let me see if I can get the match schedule up on my little monitor. Yes, I think we can give you already a date for when the Division 2 conclusion will be played. It will be on the 10th of May. That will be happening at 6 p.m. Sorry, for loading, and it will be a yet to be determined time for the other game against Evolupa for the TempoBros, 6 p.m. CST, or Cup of the Day -1, of course, Trackmania Standard Time for the match between TempoBros and Loading. And then again, we'll be on hand to confirm you the time of the Evolupa versus TempoBros game when it is all settled.
Yeah, but I think this is a nice place to wrap it up, and I think this was also the definite last game for the weekend. It's a bit of an off weekend, but we've got a few matches to throw in here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that was all the matches for this weekend, just those two yesterday, and then this one today. And that means, sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a hard yes. Those were the only games that we had to play this weekend, unless there's a memo that I missed somehow. And I highly doubt it, given how often I check the servers. But, yeah, that's another whole can of worms altogether. But that's going to be it for today, and we're going to be closing up shop for the rest of the weekend. Of course, there's a lot more Trackmania action going on in parallel to Overdrive. Of course, we're right in the middle of Red Bull Faster Stage 2. Tomorrow, there's going to be the Elite Cup that makes a return. There's so much stuff to look forward to. And, of course, some of us will be bringing you the action, but we're all going to be in there to live it. And this is such a good timeline to be living in, Tobal. I don't know about you, but this is one heck of a timeline to live in.
What a year for Trackmania, no? I mean, just the last few days have been absolutely insane. And I mean, even before then, the few weeks and the events that are going to be happening this year. PIWO was finally announced. There's so many nice things to be looking forward to. So let's hope that this can be transferred into the future of Trackmania as well. But for now, I think the future of Trackmania is going to be whatever we make of it. And I think you guys should be there.
Yeah, and you guys should tune in on every possible comp. Thank you very much for watching. This is going to be it from us over on the Overdrive channel. I'm Thomas Mengos, a.k.a. Jiggy. I've been accompanied by the one and only Benjamin Glinsna, a.k.a. the Tobal. On cons, much love, be kind, stay safe. And until next time, Godspeed, people.